In the olden times, whatever you attended to, you could contribute to it as well. So it was two-way street and you felt fulfilled with it.
What really is attention? And would it be an overstatement or an understatement to say that it's the most valuable resource a human possesses?
I feel that growing up today is quite fragmented. So people have the value system of the household wherever they're growing up, and they have the exposure to the world through social media.
Before phones and before there were these algorithms that, kind of were designed to grasp our attention, where did that attention naturally go in your time?
Our life is our attention. That's all it is. If you think about it, otherwise I'm just a body of meat and hair maybe and some bones.
Would you rather choose, Baba, between a community that protects your attention, but I guess as a result it restricts your curiosity, or I guess a community where you have total freedom, but the downside of that may be constant distraction?
All these social media apps or whatever, wherever our attention goes to, they kind of become a gatekeeper to our mind.
Can we actually, as humans, claim independent thought if algorithms are, I guess, increasingly shaping what we see, and they're getting stronger in shaping what we see as well? We're constantly scrolling, clicking, swiping. Our attention is pulled in 1,000 directions. But have you ever stopped to think, where is your attention actually going? And more importantly, where is your life going with it? Today, my dad and I are going to explore something we rarely think about: our attention. Not as a vague concept, but as the most valuable resource you own. And we'll ask, are you spending your attention or are you investing it? Welcome to the Gen X Gen Z podcast. I'm your host, Shayan, and with me, as always, my father, author and e-commerce entrepreneur. We've been having a lot of these conversations over the years, just the two of us, and we decided that it was about time we opened them up. So, Baba, growing up, and again, I don't think this is a very generational different approach, but we're often taught or told, how to manage our money, how to manage our energy, our investments, and even our time. But no one really tends to talk about attention. And when you think about it, that's kind of where your mind actually goes. And nothing, I guess, really happens without it. If I think about that time, that money, that energy, it requires me using my attention in order to manage those things. So it brings me to the question then, what really is attention? And would it be an overstatement or an understatement to say that it's the most valuable resource a human possesses?
Well, attention is one thing which we have in our own control. For example, sometimes even your own thought is not in your control. How other people behave in your control is not in your control. But which event you give your attention to is in your control. Imagine a total dark room and there is a spotlight. Whichever place the spotlight would illuminate, you would, of course, notice that space a lot more than in the rest of the room, you wouldn't notice at all. Same way, whether it's relations, whether it is any career choices, whether it is any sport activity, any other events in life, we focus on, we pay our attention to. So we tend to care more about those things. And the rest of the things, of course, there are 1,000 choices out there. There are 1,000 choices on your phone. There are 1,000 choices in real life. And all the other choices kind of filter away, weather away. They kind of go out of your focus. In a way, they go out of your life. Whatever comes into your attention, whatever voices you are attending to, whatever people you're attending to, whatever relationships you're attending to, whatever friends you're attending to, they are part of your life. That becomes your life. Anything which you are surrounded with, but you are not paying attention to, they have nothing to do with your life. And over time, that just fades away. If you think about your own neighborhood, all the things, all the places you would have noticed and paid attention to, that becomes part of your surrounding. And if you quickly think, there will be many places in your own neighborhood you would have never noticed or you would never have paid much attention to. So you would never have felt that they are part of your surrounding. The same way many students in your classmates, in your school, in your university, so people you paid attention to became part of your life. So attention makes our life. That's who we become because that's what all we notice. The rest of it fades away. So that's how attention is very important.
I mean, from what you're saying then, it seems like, I guess me personally, I kind of saw attention as something that you, I guess, spend your time, like it decides what you spend your time on. But then I guess when you look at it from the angle you're saying, would it be correct to say that oftentimes throughout this podcast, we've spoken about things that shape us and who we are. I think we did a whole episode actually on what shapes us. And it came down to things like genetics, to your upbringing, to your circumstances. These things shape us, and we should avoid those environmental factors shaping us. But from what you're saying now, it seems like it might not even be those complex things that have as big of an impact on who we are and who we become. Would it be correct to say that our attention has an even bigger impact than those things upon what shapes us?
Just to understand it better, so of course genetics and environment and all the other things have their own impact on us, and quite a big one. And what genetics would do is that what kind of thoughts you will come in your mind and what kind of attitude you will have and what kind of things you will react to. But what all those thoughts coming into or your attitude may not be in your control in very earlier part of your life. But what is always in your control from all the things, whatever thought has come in, but which thought you paid attention to, where you took that thought, whether you took any action on it or whether, so the same way the people surrounded, which people you paid attention to, whose voices you heard, whose argument, whose worldview you got inspired from. So wherever you paid attention to, that shape when we say that our environment shapes us. So in our environment, everything we don't pay attention to. It's the things which we pay attention to shape us. So that's the difference between. So all those things, of course, are important. So the things you would pay attention to would be in your surrounding anyway, so especially when you're in the childhood.
So then, Baba, when I look at our generational difference then on this topic, if that attention is having such a big impact on shaping who we are, the things that are pulling us nowadays, the sources of attention that are pulling us nowadays are very different to the sources of attention that were pulling you guys when you were growing up. And what I mean by that is, if I think of a typical day of anyone, whether they're going to school, university or work, on the way to work, maybe in your car, the radio is pulling your attention. Whilst you're at work, it's the people you're around, and your phone's popping notifications. You come home, the news media's attracting your attention. But it makes me wonder then, before phones and before there were these algorithms that, kind of were designed to grasp our attention, where did that attention naturally go in your time?
In olden times, people were living in neighborhoods imagine, for example, a neighborhood or a village where, I mentioned this before, of 20, 30 houses, they would kind of live as one community and they look out for each other. If anything happens in that community, say a fire broke out, somebody got ill, some weather event happens, so all those people living in that particular community would be worrying or celebrating or whatever mood each event brings, they'll be in it together. So it was whatever your attention went to, somebody got ill or somebody got a wonderful job or had good grades in his exams or any other financial success somebody had. So those would be celebrated or mourned together. Whereas now through algorithms and social media, of course, you have a lot of access to your friends across other places in other city and all around the world. So you would be noticing things through the news or through other feeds. Something happened to somebody, some house got burned or somebody got ill or whatever, but you have no control to contribute to it. So that's the difference. So attention was, in the olden times, whatever you attended to, you could contribute to it as well. So it was two-way street and you felt fulfilled with it. Whereas I feel that now you pay your attention through social media to thousands of other things, but those are not in your control. You can't play a part in them. And the other thing is that the only attention you would give, especially growing up, would be people in your surrounding, whatever they said, the worldview, this is you should do, this is you shouldn't do, good and bad. So what, this is good, this is bad. So you felt that they cared about you. Now you feel the people you were giving attention to, they cared about your welfare. They cared about the community, your value system, whatever you're paying it, whether that fits within your value system or not, and all plenty of other things which are related to our well-being. But when algorithm, they are fighting for your attention or kind of watching you all the time, which things you're paying attention to and which you're not, and planning for grab your attention. So they're only planning those attention moments or keep you on them, on those apps, just for the purpose of you staying on them, not for your welfare. I think this is one bit I always think that states and governments at some point might have to look into, that where, I mean, in an ideal world, where somebody can write down what is their welfare, and then the algorithms should only show up those type of things which falls into the well-being of that individual. But that's not the case right now. They're just grabbing attention. Anything, whether it's sweet or sour, so whatever can grab your attention.
So, Baba, I find it interesting you mentioning that, I guess, attention being brought into action being something that's quite prevalent when you were growing up. Because again, like you said, nowadays, anything that grabs our attention, it can be on the other side of the world, and we can't really take much action within it. It's not something that you do as a collective and as a community. So it makes me wonder then, did those families and communities when you were growing up, did they kind of once act as guardians of human attention?
Because families, when you're growing up, family cared that and understood the importance of attention, that whatever our child would pay attention to, that's what he will become. Whether he'll pay attention to studies or whether he'll pay attention to the value system which we carry, the religion we have, or our way of life, the worldview we keep. So if he would have those kind of value system, and then he would become the type of person which we all are. Otherwise, if he'll pay attention to, say, for example, at that time there was no social media, but there would be people around which would be considered out of your own type of circle. And they wouldn't want you to go through those circles so that you pay attention to certain things. Understanding this, that whatever our child or this person would pay attention to, he will become that. So maybe they didn't call it attention, so they might have called it wherever he'll spend time, or the kind of friends he will have, or the type of people he'll interact with. But that's exactly the purpose, was that whichever things you would pay the attentions to, that the type of person you will become. Whereas now, most of the attention is divided between the social media and online interaction kids have, or you lot have, and whatever is being said by the elders or the family or the community. And I feel that growing up today is quite fragmented. So people have the value system of the household wherever they're growing up, and they have the exposure to the world through social media. And they have two narratives building up, coming to them, form of information. One is family telling them one thing, parents, for example, elder siblings or uncle, aunts. And another information is coming through the social media feeds or online exposure. And even parents wouldn't know which side has been chosen. So before, when we were growing up, so parents wouldn't exactly know where the kid is, and whatever they have exposed the child to, they would know that that's the only exposure he has or she has. So I think that's the difference. Now, it's very difficult for parents to completely monitor or understand or know where the child is going. And for children, there's a lot of other sources of information.
And that kind of leads me nicely into a segment that we like to call, obviously, the trade-off segment. So, Baba, I'm just going to give you a couple options. They're not always opposites, just different answers, and kind of just go based off of your instinct. So based off of this, what you're saying right now regarding kind of, I guess, parents and the community had a bit of control over where your attention was going. Would you rather choose, Baba, between a community that protects your attention, but I guess as a result, it restricts your curiosity, or I guess a community where you have total freedom, but the downside of that may be constant distraction?
Nowadays, for example, you have online communities where you have WhatsApp groups, you have Facebook friends and all the other social media friends. And you may not know all of them very intimately or closely, or their histories of who they are, or what their worldview is, what type of value system they belong to. Whereas the community system in the olden times, people knew each other, they trusted each other very well. They knew the ancestral link of each other. So that trust didn't kind of get built in one lifetime, but it was built over a period of generational time. So I think that trust and the time, which was much longer, which was generational, had a lot of value to it. And you could trust very easily to their comments or their advices. Whereas now you will get, of course, advices and multiple advices, and sometimes very wise ones, or ideas or point of views, or especially when you are trying to do something. But onus is on you. So you have to decide and do your due diligence, research, whether this suits you or your circumstances or not. Whereas before, you could rely on somebody senior, somebody more knowledgeable or wise, and know that, okay, they are saying this for your welfare. And people, I know many people who always just took advices and without properly checking it, worked on them, and they spent life like that, and that worked for them. Whereas in this new system, you can, of course, go through social media or groups, whoever gives you advices and all that. But at the same time, you have to do your own due diligence. That blind trust is not there, and it's not even wise to do that in this current form of community. So that's the difference.
And I agree with you. Of course, blind trust nowadays is very easy to put anything online, especially, or take kind of information from a source that isn't very reliable, but it'll still have a lot of followers or backing behind it because for other reasons. But that blind trust, I guess, growing up in a quite an individualistic society, I think that's the major difference between us here as well, is that growing up here, I've grown up heavily on individualism. It almost feels uneasy. I guess blind trust might be a bit extreme, but having pure trust on another person for, I guess, kind of giving them that control or giving them that privilege to be able to help kind of guide my attention. So would you not argue that maybe on the other side, it can be limited, that taking from an individual and not having the ability to, I guess, fact check can also be something that can be quite limiting?
You know, olden times, they were slow-paced time, and it was very simplistic, life was. And people were not as either ambitious, or the opportunity wasn't as great. The difference between one thing or the other wasn't huge. But now, of course, there's a lot of ability to do a lot of research and due diligence, and so all kind of platforms available to go into as much detail as you can in making all the choices which we do. And their implications are huge as well, and in both sides, whether you will gain at something or lose something. For today, of course, going through this due diligence and all that is a good way to do. But on the other side, you know, life is not about just success or making sure that you progress and go ahead. It's also about comfort and the trust and who you value, and you did this because even doing something and taking a particular job because somebody said that, okay, it'll be a good one, or starting a particular business because somebody advised you. And even 10 years down the line, 15 years, people would remember those people who advised them and still regard them in their thoughts and memories as kind of their guardians or their advisors in a kind of very good way. That strength of relationship in the olden system people had with each other, that was life in itself. So now life is just individualistic, and whether if you gain something with a particular choice or not is more in focus rather than how that will impact your life as a whole. Whereas in those times that, okay, who you aligned yourself to and how, so as a whole community, whether any choices benefited the whole community and how the whole community felt about it. And the pace of life was very different back then.
And I guess that pace of life obviously has changed for 1,000 reasons, but one of the things I personally feel has changed that pace of life is something you kind of mentioned a little bit earlier on the podcast, and I guess it's these algorithms as well, because having this constant feedback of what you want and what you like takes up a lot of our attention. It distracts us, and time kind of just flies by without us realizing. And on that point, Baba, we've spoken a little bit about algorithms, and obviously the topic is attention. But just to help clarify it a bit further, if these algorithms that obviously are controlled by companies, if they are taking our attention, what does that actually really mean though? Because attention seems like quite a broad term. Is it like our time? Is it our focus? Or would you say it's something deeper?
Well, attention, of course, we always think that attention is quite a broad term. But if you realize that attention is something which we can only give to one particular thing in a particular time. If I'm talking to you and suddenly my phone has a notification and I looked at it, my attention shifted to something else. And I come back to you, of course. You might think I'm still present, but I wasn't for a moment. I went somewhere else. So, of course, before even newspapers and television and all that, they were, of course, built to grab our attention as well. But the amount of aggression or amount of ambition they had was a bit different than the way these apps today have it. They want to keep us all the time. And of course, they put a lot of research that what your attention goes for and whichever thing you would give your attention to, so they'll bring more of it. Because, our life is our attention. That's all it is. If you think about it, otherwise I'm just a body of meat and hair maybe and some bones. And whatever value you have of me is my attention to you. And whatever value anybody else has of me is my attention to them. That's a very big conscious choice we human have to pay attention to whatever thing. And that's the biggest asset we have. And that's why all these apps and social media, and they're fighting to grab the biggest human asset.
And it's interesting because a lot of the time as well, especially when you mention it happens every day that people are having a conversation and it's purely a little ping that takes away your attention for a moment. And we're constantly throughout life, especially at school, university, you're told to stay focused. Wherever you watch, wherever you look, success requires focus. But these kind of apps and platforms, I guess they are created and curated through notifications or whatever form, I guess distract us rather than actually protect us. So, Baba, do you think that we've built an economy then that, I guess, profits off of these distractions?
To some extent, yes. All these social media apps or whatever, wherever our attention goes to, they kind of become a gatekeeper to our mind. They keep showing us things which encourage us to make certain choices or to feel in a certain way. So imagine you are going to a library and whatever books are in front of you. So you would, of course, choose from the books which are at your eye level or at your knee level. So if there are some books out of approach, whether they are there, but you won't be able to access to them. If all the time you've been shown certain type of books, your ideology over time will become the type of books you read. I'm seeing the library is a doorway to your mind. And the same with the apps and all these channels, they are kind of gatekeepers to your mind. So whatever they show you, so that kind of you pay attention to, your ideas about life and your worldview get shaped with it. And what you should choose, what type of shopping you should do, what type of studies or career you should choose, how you should create your friendships, how you marry, and all those kind of choices get influenced, if not totally decided by them. But you feel that you're deciding those or making those choices, but that idea sometimes has come from one of those pings. Without kind of us pushing us as much that we start feeling that they are deciding for us, they interfere just enough, not completely taking control, but just enough so that we feel in control and think that we made these choices. Whereas we've been only exposed to certain type of choices through social media because they start knowing us much better than our parents and our friends and our classmates.
I find that interesting because we're brought up constantly thinking that we choose what to believe. But from the point that you're making right now, I kind of question that. And the reason I say that is when the information we see, like you say, if it's filtered, if it's, I guess, ranked and then personalized and then packaged and brought to us in a certain way, it makes me wonder how independent really is our thinking. So I guess to go further into that point you mentioned, Baba, can we actually as humans claim independent thought if algorithms are, I guess, increasingly shaping what we see, and they're getting stronger in shaping what we see as well?
We are never completely independent. Of course, our environment initially shapes us, and whoever our parents, even in our time, of course, there were influences through our society and approval, disapproval mechanisms through our family. And so we were not completely independent before. But the difference is that the influence on our brain was through family, friends, and people we knew. But now the influence is through algorithms and apps, which we have no idea of their intentions. we have some idea that they want us to be on them. So they are grabbing the attention for the purpose of their own benefit. Whereas the previous people who were trying to kind of guide our attention to certain things or certain places, we believed that they cared for us. Whereas now, nobody knows. It's very early days, so 17, 20 years is not a huge lot of time to know. And I don't think there's a game plan by social media companies to distract us. So they found a business model which works as this, that, okay, whoever will get more attention of combined human race will be making more money. So that's all. And they're just doing putting money to do the research, which type of things would grab more attention, which thing people are liking more or spending time on more. That's all their business. There's nothing evil in it. But whether that business model is helping us, or it's because they are not caring whether how it will help or distract or destroy somebody's time or life. So that's the choice we have, that how to have a strong will, that whether we take control of our own life and our time and give attention where it needed to be, and see that attention is needed to be invested rather than just spent on anything.
I get what you're saying regarding of course they have a business model and it's a profitable model, so they create it according to those standards. But as time goes on, we're noticing that our attention is more and more increasingly being spent on these social media platforms or wherever the algorithm takes us. And oftentimes it's something we've spoken about, I've even noticed. When I say you, I mean Generation X notices in Generation Z that we spend a lot less attention on things like social and familial and friendship in real life conversations. And us as Generation Z, we kind of see, I think Generation Alpha is the one below us, we think they spend even less time. As these algorithms get better, our attention seems to be getting more fragmented. And oftentimes, even myself, I spend times with family and friends, and a lot of that time is spent in good conversation, but I'd say increasingly a lot of that time is now also being spent through these distractions. Like you said, that notification comes on your phone, your attention goes away for a second. It makes me wonder then, how is all this fragmented attention affecting all these real life relationships, whether it be with our family, whether it be with our friends? What are the impacts it's having? Because it doesn't seem very positive.
Of course not. Because the trust and the strength of the relationship is dependent on attention. When you are sitting with somebody and you're talking to them, we are talking to each other. If any of us would suddenly start checking their phones, or even in your own mind, if you just go somewhere else, so that focused on each other would just shift, and the other person would, of course, divert into something else. So I think it is affecting relationships. It is affecting our overall way of life. And most of the time, if you realize that the type of quality these social media apps or all these notifications are providing for the time we spend on them, nothing much. Most of the time there is a small entertainment here and there, or a bit of laugh here. But if the same attention is being given for a particular type of information, or what you have decided yourself, that I needed this information, or I needed that kind of program to be watched, or anything which you decided yourself, then of course it's worthwhile spending all that time. But when this attention is only given because that app has decided to distract you for one thing or the other, and you happen to got distracted once and second time or third time, and so app of course starts knowing you over time that's how this person can be distracted. And that distraction of course create this fragmentation into relationships we have with each other, and that is of course becoming very serious. And the other important thing is that the type of things these apps understand grab human attention are such as competitiveness, such as enviness, such as drama or human drama. And they are negative things for human behavior. And over time, the rise of individualism or people caring less for each other is linked with this model of FOMO or fear of missing out or competitiveness and those comparisons people do through social media, that's the type of individual it produces. And that's where it becomes problematic for any type of relationship. Brother-sister relationship, cousins relationship, friends relationship. As soon as the enviness, competitiveness, comparison comes in, the relationship becomes shady. So I think they need to be taken a bit more with care rather than just seeing them as, okay, some harmless thing around us. No, they're not harmless.
Yeah, and I'd never really looked at it from that perspective. I guess when I looked at fragmentation of relationships, you look at it from, okay, my attention's going somewhere else. But that's an interesting point you make there, that those behavioral changes that comes from where your attention's being focused also has an impact on the relationships as well. Now, speaking of those same relationships, Baba, in my opinion, our generation, because of these tools of social media, I feel like we have more connections than ever. We're constantly connected with the people that we know in real life, but we're also constantly connected in online communities. Sometimes it's gaming communities, sometimes it's just other kind of social Discord communities. So we have more friends than ever, but it makes me question on whether the deepness of those relationships is still there. I wonder if kind of breadth has replaced depth. And it leads me to the question then, has technology expanded our social circles whilst, I guess, weakening our closest relationships as a result?
Well, it shouldn't have been a trade-off though, but because the way social media has come in and the kind of things they promoted, the comparison, envy and other things I mentioned, I think that without people knowing over time, the attitudes change and that depth of relationship, which people used to have at individual level, kind of got replaced that, okay, I have so many friends online and I have these many groups and I don't need maybe the individual interaction as much with in old ways of community. And I think that's what has happened. But the strength and the trust of olden times can't be replaced with the breadth of social media or WhatsApp groups now. Because even if you had 3-4 people who are kind of very close by or very, very close-knit, you could rely on them on anything, whether you're ill or whether you have a trouble late at night or any kind of problems you have in your life, your family's in trouble, they'll be there for each other. So they would treat each other as family. But now you have maybe hundreds and sometimes thousands of online friends, but when you're in trouble, so nobody's around. So that's the difference.
Definitely, you are right. That breadth has kind of been replaced. The depth, has been replaced by the breadth for sure. And that you hear it often as well. It feels kind of odd sometimes, but you see influencers and even actors sometimes, they talk about feeling that loneliness despite having such a major following. But I guess it goes on that point that you're saying that the depth isn't there as a result. So moving on now, Baba, from, I guess, the impact of attention on relationships, I want to kind of look into the impact of these distractions and taking away of attention on our political sense. And what I mean by that is, obviously we're part of a democracy, and a democracy depends on an informed public. I guess it's the foundation of it. But if our attention is constantly being pulled away to, I guess, these negative things, these outrages or these spectacles or even distractions, it makes me wonder if we're still capable of governing ourselves. So my question is, can democracy survive if citizens no longer control the things that are capturing their attention?
The rise of populism since the past 15 odd years, right across Europe, Asia, South America, that is through the social media. So whoever says the things louder, whether they will get hurt, whether the thing is what he's saying is right or wrong, because people would only hear the things which are said louder. That's the difference. Whereas before, so you have to say the right thing, and that will go through proper channel, through news channels or through newspapers. But now, as long as you can spend money and you can through money, of course, you can create the loudness into social media. And you can say the type of things which everybody likes. And that is cold populism, where whatever public likes, just say it and then become elected. And right-wing in Europe, and again right-wing in South America, a certain type of wing in Asia. So it is affecting not just democracy, but all our way of life, the way people see the governance, the way they see the society. I think the trust is diminishing. UK has changed 7 prime ministers in the past 10 years. Europe is not as behind, so there is a lot of fragmentation in Europe as well. I think it's early days still, 20 odd years in social media and all this new form of online interaction and has come in. I think its impact would be very long term. And states, societies, governance systems and will need to change to adapt and make sense of this new change so that it doesn't completely destroy the systems nations have built in centuries.
No, definitely. And I guess that's quite a deep point that you make there towards the end as well. And I think a prime example of that is Trump's rise. They often call that the podcast election, his recent campaign. They're really outspoken, constantly on social media, constantly on shorts, reels. A lot of people kind of credit that to him gaining so much popularity during that time. So that makes sense. Now, but what I want to do is I want to move on to another segment that we call the lessons of life. So as you know, it's just 1 or 2 questions of what you've picked up along the way. So from your own experience, Baba, when did you realize that where you put your attention was shaping your life more than you realized? And what kind of changed after that?
Well, I never thought like exactly that whether I'm putting attention to that would change my life, but I always thought putting my effort to. So it was just the difference in wording. And I think effort I actually meant exactly the same thing as attention. So practically whatever situation, I think from a very young age, from the age of, I would say, 16, 18 years old, whatever thing I would think is good for me and I need to do it, I would just completely get focused on that. And even I would deliberately, in my free time, if I'm playing, if I'm doing anything else, I'll think about it. So I had this kind of inbuilt mechanism that's how my focus would stay. So whatever I'm doing, I would remind myself of the thing that my main focus in life for this month or this year or these 6 months is. So I'll keep I think I still have that habit, that whatever my main focus is in life, so I would keep reminding myself all day, whether I've done this, whether I have kind of covered that bit or not. So I think that was kind of inbuilt practice. Maybe my dad advised me sometimes or just got in me from somewhere.
And similar then, I guess, to today, obviously when you were growing up, there were distractions still, of course, but one could argue potentially there were less available distractions than there are now. So even nowadays, do you ever feel like your attention is being taken from, I guess, social media or other platforms? Do you ever notice that effort wavering as a result?
I never used to. I was never big on social media or wouldn't kind of scroll through it. We were doing a podcast recently on smartphones. And for the research purposes, I started doing reels and and kind of I got glued to them over time. I kind of started liking, I still scroll through and there are certain type of news I would see or certain type of reels which come up, which, for example, I liked. Before that, I never kind of got too much distraction from social media. But now I do sometimes. And how I felt is that maybe when people who are retiring or have retired, it's a good thing for them. It can keep people occupied and the type of entertainment you want, so it can provide that, a specific one and in a short form. And I also noticed that it kind of reduces your attention span. You can't kind of stay attentive to something for longer, and which I feel is the biggest drawback. I think recently some research has been done that people who are happier are the ones who can stay attentive to something which they are doing at any time. Whether the thing is boring or a happy, good one, as long as they always stay attentive to the thing which they are doing, they are the happiest people. And people who can't stay attentive to the thing which they're doing at a time, the presence, whether how much ever entertaining that thing is, they don't kind of feel the sense of happiness or contentment as much.
And I guess that's quite a practical point to act upon. Anything that you feel like day to day is taking away your attention, maybe consider removing it or reducing it in your life as well. Now, Baba, my penultimate question, I want to look a bit more towards the future now. And a big aspect of our future currently feels like it's AI. It's all we hear on the news, and it's all that we kind of see in front of us whenever we're on our phones, whenever we're watching something on TV. AI is already shaping what we see, click, and even think about. But I wonder, in this near future, will AI also be something that competes for our attention? Or because it's a tool, do you think it'll be something that helps protect it?
Well, for now, AI because is not something which is giving us any notifications or anything. We need certain information, research or anything, so then we go to AI and ask for it. It doesn't seem, I think it will depend how people use it. If people are using it for curiosity purposes or whatever, they need certain information or help with their businesses or build certain tools, or I think the main thing would be that if you are using it for a purpose you have, then any social media is fine, and so would AI. If the AI or social media is using you, that's where the problem comes. So if they are pulling you towards them without you having any purpose, then it's a trouble for you. And it's not adding thing, it's taking something out of your life. If you are using them for fulfilling your purpose, you're adding something to your life. I think that's how AI would.
I think that's a lovely mantra to kind of constantly have in your head whenever using these platforms, for sure. So after all of this then, Baba, from attention being that doorway to life, to the economy that profits from distraction, all the way to whether, I guess, AI will be something that protects us or exploits our focus. After all of this, what is one piece of advice that you would give my generation about taking back control of our attention in a world that's constantly fighting for it?
I would say this, that taking attention as the most valuable resource we have and investing it in a way that it brings returns, so that you are thinking that whatever time you're giving to somebody, whatever focus or attention you're giving to anything, would it produce something for me now, in the future? Then yes, do it. But if it is only for the purpose of distraction or taking your attention away, and you're just spending your time and attention for something which has nothing coming back to you, then avoid doing that.
Thanks so much for that, Baba. So here's what we're left with. Attention isn't just about focus. It's about where your life goes. Every moment of attention is an investment in something. The question is whether you're investing in something that you actually care about, or just spending your life on whatever captures it first. You can't control everything that demands your attention, but you can start asking, is this where I want my life to go? Thank you so much for listening.